Ron DeSantis is the Republican governor of Florida, a state where a quarter of the population, is older than 60. And even though the state has a huge vulnerable population, the governor's actions have indicated that he does not have a very good grasp on the details of the virus. Just listen to his wild assertion that he had yesterday.
This particular pandemic is one where I don't think nationwide there's been a single fatality under 25. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to threaten, kids. Much more dangerous if you're 65 and plus than the flu, no doubt about that. If you're younger, it just hasn't had an impact. So that should factor into how we're viewing this. I think the data on that has been 100% consistent. I've not seen any deviation on that.
That assertion, no one under 25 has died, that's just flat out false. I mean, in fact, on this show, we have covered people under the age of 25 who have succumbed to the virus. A quick Google will pull that up. But it should not come as a surprise from Governor DeSantis. Just hours after issuing a statewide stay-at-home order, he also signed an exemption designating religious services, quote, essential activities and not limiting the number of people who can attend the service. Though he did urge those people to practice social distancing. Not clear how that gets enforced. Some churches in Florida held services last weekend for Palm Sunday, including a church in Orlando where the pastor told people, quote, this is not a time to hide, this is not a time to chicken out, and this is not a time to listen to online sermons only. This is a time to gather together in his presence. That church, along with others in Florida, plan on holding in-person Easter services this weekend. Joining me now is Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, NIKKI Fried. She's been critical of the governor's approach to this for failing to lead. Commissioner, the governor says, when he first sort of started on this, said, look, it's not affecting everyone in the state. A statewide order doesn't make any sense. He then said, it's important that people be able to sort of religiously observe. What do you see as wrong with the approach he's taken here?
Obviously, I've been very critical of his approach to all of this. I called on a shutdown almost 2 weeks prior to him initiating it. And it's just dangerous. We were piecemealing approaches throughout the entire time. And that's just not how the state of Florida works, that we needed this shutdown. And to now allow for churches to stay open, look, we certainly all are sympathetic of everybody wanting the religious opportunities. I celebrated Passover via Zoom with my family on Wednesday night. But this is a time for us all to take this seriously.
Are you worried about that specifically? It does seem like the religious exemption, which he explicitly carved out, doesn't limit the amount of people that can attend services. We know that sometimes one or two events can be really, really powerful in spreading the virus.
Yeah, of course, we are concerned. But it's the same thing that we've been seeing time and time again, unfortunately, from the governor. And look, this is not partisan. And I don't think anybody is surprised. I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican, but this isn't partisan. This is our time to hold our leaders accountable and to call out if there's been a failure in leadership, and which is what we have seen from the very start of this pandemic up to his comments from yesterday, is really a dangerous information. And when we are, as elected officials, having to create policy, we've got to be relying on data and scientific information, and having misinformation is very dangerous during this time period. Words have consequences and matters. I oversee a program that feeds 2 million of our kids across the state of Florida. If I misspeak, kids go hungry. I oversee a $137 billion agriculture industry. If I misspeak, our food chain has serious implications. So our words matter, and this is no time for errors.
One of the things that has come to the surface, we showed some pictures, I think, earlier, or mentioned Hialeah, where a whole bunch of people had to come in person to get a printout for unemployment insurance. And there's been a lot of attention paid to the unemployment insurance system in Florida and the fact that it is very, very user-unfriendly. What is going on there?
It's a disaster. It is absolutely a disaster, and something that not only Governor DeSantis was warned about in 2019, but certainly his predecessor, now Senator Scott, knew that there was all these problems with the system. We're hearing horror stories of people being on the phone 7, 8 hours, the website crashing, and so the response to all of that was giving out paper applications. And so I saw those horror pictures out of Hialeah with hundreds and upon hundreds gathered in lines trying to get their paper their paper applications. And so what you're doing is you're asking individuals to choose between getting their unemployment benefits and their health and their safety. And that's just unacceptable. And this is something that is going to really put a lot of people in harm's way.
One of the things that I can't get my head around as I've read into this is that people have basically admitted that Rick Scott, who is now a senator from Florida, previous governor, essentially engineered a system to be as difficult as possible to keep the unemployment numbers down. This is from some of the Politico reporting. It's a S sandwich. It was designed that way by Rick Scott, said one DeSantis advisor. Republican Party of Florida Chairman Joe Gruters was more succinct that someone should go to jail over that in terms of how difficult it has been to access. Is that your understanding too?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. The state of Florida spent $77 million creating a system that was doomed to fail. Again, there was over 600 different errors and violations that they heard about in 2019, and zero actions were taken until which time that, unfortunately, people started getting fired and had to go onto the system. And the fact that Governor DeSantis is trying to blame either his agency director or his predecessor is again, trying to not take ownership of the crisis that's going on here in the state of Florida.
All right, Commissioner in Florida, Nikki Fried, thank you for making some time tonight.
Thank you for having me.